Hello, welcome to lesson number 5. I hope you've got a first draft of your structure diagram developed from lesson 4. This lesson focuses on authority and governance. So how do we share power and make decisions? How do we distribute the right to make those decisions, take actions, and get others to do the same? Now, these are huge topics that we could spend weeks on, but this is only season 1, so we're only going to cover the basics. Let's jump in. When you join a big traditional company, you're usually not allowed to do anything unless someone says you can. The big bosses and the senior managers get to make all of the decisions, and it can sometimes feel like you're just a small part of a big machine. Now, this happens because those people think that the best way to stop bad things from happening is to make sure that everyone follows the rules. But really, it's all just about control. Now, it starts off pretty simple. In the beginning, everyone is rushing around to try and get the company off the ground. But as the company grows, it tries to stay safe and avoids any risks by making sure that everyone follows the policies, the rules, and the regulations. And as more time goes by, there are so many rules that you can't do anything fun or exciting without getting permission from several layers of management. And the result is unauthorized employees develop a sense of apathy and learned helplessness. Engagement declines. Decisions get made slowly. And stories of mistakes and failures create a culture of fear. DAOs should give our contributors the freedom and autonomy to do what they can to advance the DAO's mission. Here, the starting idea is that you can do anything unless there is a specific rule or agreement that says you can't. So we start from a position of trust. Instead of having all the power concentrated at the top with just a few big bosses, we want to distribute the power to the teams and the individuals right to where all of the action is. Our teams are in charge of their own work and how they do it. So if something is getting in their way or stopping them from doing their job, they can try to fix it themselves. So the result is more freedom leading to more learning and better performance. Engagement improves and decisions get made much quicker. But operating like this requires new ways of decision making. We need to use our purpose, core values, and principles to make sure our decisions are sound. That means we have to take the time to figure out what decisions each person, role, and team can make. Knowing who can make a decision and how they should do it is critical. It cannot be left undefined or unclear. But what we're asking our contributors to do here is a big deal. You need to be emotionally mature, have self-awareness, and be professional to flourish in this environment. But even if it sounds counterintuitive, having more freedom actually helps us to learn more, and learning more makes us better. In the corporate world today, how many employees don't have the power they need to do their jobs properly? We're living in a fast-changing era where stopping people from making decisions and using their own judgment can prevent your organization from reaching its true potential. In most old-school companies, managers believe that everyone's job is to do everything perfectly. Mistakes, not allowed. Failure, no way. And so we use all our knowledge and lots of effort to make our teams work like well-oiled machines. But there's a problem. They're not machines. They're people. Like we said during lesson number 3, our members form part of an emergent complex system. And by only focusing on doing things perfectly, we stop the system from growing naturally. In DAOs, our job isn't to be perfect. It's to create a culture where we're always learning. And that means trusting people and letting go. Along the same lines of creating freedom within your DAO, maximizing freedom means minimizing policy. Jason Fried and David Hansen from Basecamp warn that isolated incidents can too easily lead to bureaucracy. I love this quote from their book, Rework. Policies are organizational scar tissue. They are codified overreactions to situations that are unlikely to happen again. They are collective punishment for the misdeeds of an individual. This is governing for the exception rather than the rule. In other words, don't overreact. At Basecamp, they only institute a new policy when something negative happens over and over again. So ask yourself, what's the smallest amount of policy required to protect us whilst preserving the flexibility to learn and act without judgment? Some of you might be familiar with the company called W.L. Gore that makes Gore-Tex, and they've really shaken up the way things are usually done in corporations. They have this guiding principle called the waterline, and it says the following: everyone at Gore must consult with other knowledgeable and experienced colleagues before doing things that might be below the waterline and could seriously hurt the enterprise. The waterline principle is a great way to think about it. Imagine a boat. If there's a hole in the boat above the water, it's okay. The boat can keep floating. But if there's a hole below the waterline, it's bad news. The boat might sink. That kind of mistake is really hard to fix. So at Gore, they use the advice process, which we'll talk about next, when they have to make decisions below the waterline, the bigger decisions. You can instill this waterline principle in your own DAO. What kinds of decisions can everyone make without consulting others first? How much power are you ready to give away without any conditions? Be clear about this and push back when contributors ask you if they can do something that's above the waterline. Ask them what they plan to do. Try to remove your own bus factor wherever you can. So what about decisions that are risky and clearly below the waterline? One way is to let certain people or roles make those decisions only by implementing role-based governance. But another way might be to use the advice process. Anyone should be able to make a big decision, but they must ask advice from people who know a lot about the subject or will be affected by their decision. That means they must find those people, meet up with them one-on-one, and talk about the options and potential outcomes. To make the advice process work, the person making the decision must be open to asking for advice and really listen. People giving advice must be okay with their advice not being taken, and they shouldn't try to influence the decision with popularity or expertise. This isn't about trying to make everyone happy, where a few bosses get to change the idea until it's pretty dull or uninspiring. This is just advice, nothing more. Once a decision has been made, it should be shared with everyone along with the reasons and the viewpoints that helped shape it, so that everyone can learn from it. And for this to really work, the person making the decision must take full responsibility for the outcomes and stay accountable. When done well, this creates a sense of ownership and responsibility that's really hard to match. What happens if there are decisions that need more than just a few people to agree on it? Well, when a new plan or idea is suggested, in a perfect world, the idea is great. We hope that everyone will think it's awesome and everyone will agree with it. But in real life, it's not that easy. Some people might think it's the best thing ever. Some might think it's okay, some might not really like it, and some might even hate it. So just asking people to vote yes or no on an idea doesn't give you the whole picture. Gerard Endenberg brought sociocracy into the workplace about 50 years ago. He said we need to understand the difference between consensus and consent in how we run things. Consensus means everyone agrees, while consent means no objections. He figured that consensus isn't just impossible at scale, but it doesn't really reflect how dynamic systems that adapt really work. You're never going to get 100% agreement from everyone. Instead, he argued that consent or no objections should be the main rule for running organizations, and more importantly, it should be informed consent. He argued that all important decisions should be made with the informed consent of those affected by them. Endenburg's consent process has been brought back recently in a more structured form called integrative decision making, or IDM. IDM uses a series of rounds that work like a process for working through an idea or a proposal. In each round, the proposal gets better because the person suggesting it includes feedback and suggestions from others. IDM focuses on including everyone and keeping things moving forward. When discussing a proposal in this consent-based way, people ask themselves, is this good enough for now? Is it safe enough to try? It doesn't have to be perfect and make everyone happy. And if someone disagrees with a proposal, they can't just say no to it, but they must provide suggestions on how to make it safe to try. So what does this integrative decision making, or IDM, look like in practice? Imagine gathering the team in an online video meeting. It works best if a facilitator is appointed to manage the flow of the meeting. Step 1 is propose. A team member describes a tension that they're trying to solve, followed by a proposal or a recommendation. The proposer speaks and everyone else listens. Step 2 is clarify. Each participant is given the chance to ask questions to the proposer to understand the proposal. The facilitator gives everyone a chance. Participant asks, proposer answers, and everyone else listens. Step 3 is react. So going around the virtual table again, the proposer gives each participant the chance to react and give feedback. The proposer does not reply to reactions or feedback until the next round. Step 4 is adjust. So based on the questions, feedback, and reactions, the proposer may edit the proposal or not and clarify anything that was unclear. The proposer may also remove the proposal at this time if they no longer wish to pursue it based on what they've learned. Step 5 is consent. Cycling through the team again, each participant can voice an objection if they have one. An objection is defined as a reason this would be unsafe to try or would cause irreversible harm to the team or organization. This is a high bar by design, as the goal here is progress, a safe step towards resolving the original tension. Step 6 is integrate. Those who object are invited to work with the proposer to edit the proposal, making it smaller, faster, better, cheaper, whatever is required to achieve consent from both parties. Once all objections have been addressed, the proposal is accepted. Congratulations, you've made a decision together. Murmur at murmur.com is an online tool used to make IDM an asynchronous consent process. It doesn't require any tokens, NFTs, reputation, or Web3 type of voting. You can also use Notion or Google Docs for this exact same process. Instead of the 6 steps of IDM, it uses 3 phases: understand, improve, and decide. In this example, we're using Murmur, so the user interface guides you through the process. Step 1 is understand. A DAO member submits a proposal to the DAO or a team who will be directly impacted by it. Participants then ask questions to gain clarity on the content of the proposal. This is not a time to make suggestions. The proposer then answers the questions and participants will have a chance to review them at the beginning of the next round. The next step is improve, where participants make suggestions. This is their one and only chance to provide feedback and recommend improvements. Participants will also log a reaction to give the proposer an overall impression of how they feel about it. The proposer then has the opportunity to make edits and respond to the suggestions before asking for final consent. The third and final step is decide. Participants review the changes and responses to their suggestions. They are then asked to either consent to it as written or object if they truly feel it is not safe to try. If they choose to object, they must try to shape it further to make it safe to try. They must propose a sensible amendment to which they will consent. 9 times out of 10, if you really spend enough time in the improve phase to incorporate feedback, it receives consent from everyone first time. This 3-step asynchronous process is a great way to quickly make consent-based decisions. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about Web3? What about token voting? What about on-chain governance? You've come all this way and you didn't even mention Snapshot? Well, yes, the truth is, we've been getting so swept away with all the latest crypto voting tools and frameworks that we've actually forgotten that it's possible to make decisions at scale without tokens, NFTs, reputation, or whatever. I mean, just look at all these tools. It's actually overwhelming and they are growing by the day. I mean, which one is right for you? Of course, there is no right or wrong answer here. If your DAO doesn't have a token yet, great. Why not use the waterline principle, the advice process, or even the consent process? They are tried and tested methods that we use at Colony regularly. And if you're using any of those tools already, perhaps there's a way for you to distribute authority and let members make decisions locally without having to vote on everything and trying to reach consensus on every decision. Now, what we covered today lays the foundations. I wanted to show you alternative off-chain decision-making frameworks to make operational decisions. We will, however, go much deeper into on-chain DAO governance and look at many of the different tools and frameworks during DAO Club's Season 2, which you'll be able to join upon completion of this course. Okay, that's all the content for Lesson 5. Here's what you need to do next. In your homework document, describe how your DAO makes decisions. What is your process for collective decision making? Who has authority and how is that authority exercised? If you're using fungible tokens, then write that down. If you're using NFTs to vote, then write that down. If you're using cage fights or rock, paper, scissors to determine who has the most authority, then write that down. There are no wrong answers. Just tell me what you do. But put them in your homework document so that you can submit it at the end of the course in order to join our live cohort during Season 2. I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson. Good luck.